Hello, friends. It's me, Easy E, and my best friend Chris, and we're here to talk to you about GPS watches and why you absolutely, positively should be running with one. So let's talk about what GPS watch. Probably, unless you've been living under a rock, you understand what a GPS watch is. It is a watch with a GPS receiver built in that utilizes satellites in orbit to triangulate your position and measure how far you've just traveled, at what speed, and so on. This technology, commercially available GPS watches, probably been around for 15-ish years, where you could very easily get it, closer to 20 with some of the prospective units. Now, as a runner whose running career has straddled the line before commercially available GPS units and after, I was one of those early adopters with like the giant receiver strapped to my shoulder and then the giant watch that the receiver would transmit the signal to. As somebody who's kind of seen both sides of the equation, it's much more fun with GPS watches, guys. So that's the number one reason, fun. It's great knowing how far you just ran. Back in the day, back in the olden days, when we walked to school uphill both ways in the snow, we also had to drive our route in our Model T, and we would have to get the distance, and so we would know how far we just ran. It was also really great knowing how fast you just ran. Back in the day, this might have bit me in the butt a little bit as a young gun trying to be as fast as I could, but it's also knowing your pace. You can make sure you're running not too fast at times. So it's great knowing your pace. It's really fun seeing a map of where you just went and learning new roads and being able to share that with friends and run together at new places that you discover through their maps. There are new apps out there. Maybe the most fun, or one of the most fun, is Strava. In Strava, you can connect to your GPS watch. And so when you're done running, you can review your route, of course, but Strava also set up a lot like Facebook. So you can be friends with people and you can see each other's runs. And then you can create these little segments along a road or a trail, and you can see how fast you ran compared to other people. So it's not necessarily about beating everybody else, but it's being maybe a competitive with yourself. That is a really fun thing to be able to do that we couldn't do that back in the olden days. It is reason number 2 for a GPS watch. It's great being able to quantify your running. Back in the day, or even still, many people just think about how many miles a week they run, and it's vastly different doing 40 miles of very low intensity, easy jogging versus that same amount of mileage, 40 miles, with a tempo run, maybe some speed work, and then a long run thrown in. There's vastly different amounts of stress on the body, and you can get better insight into that with your GPS watch. Third, GPS watches can be more safe. And so some of the functions on the newer watches, you can have it connected to your phone on you, and if you have it set in the way that you want, when you take an abrupt fall, it can automatically message a loved one. That's pretty cool. You can also, if you're doing, say, your first marathon, and you want to have your phone with you and your watch, and you can have them connected, you can then have it a tweet or an email sent to a loved one, and they can click on that link and they can see where you're at real time. And so, you want them to be seeing you in all your glory, coming down the finish chute. You're raising your arms, you got like snot coming down your face, probably like dribbles of blood coming down your nipples because it's your first marathon and you don't know what the hell you're doing. So it's a lot of fun, but it's also, that's a safety issue, being able to, people know where you're at any one time. Now, my recommendation, if you do purchase a GPS watch, just make sure you know the basic features. It's going to be a lot better overall. A story about features. Now, when Chris was a freshman in college in 1995, email was fairly new. That doesn't mean that Chris didn't use it all the time. Chris absolutely did use it all the time. And Chris kind of had a crush on his English teacher, Tabitha. Chris doesn't know her nowadays, so Tabitha will never see this. Now, Tabitha couldn't give Eric the time of day, but Eric and his friend Shane both kind of had a crush on her, and they would talking about who might make a better, more suitable boyfriend for her. And one day, Chris may have, via email, sent a little note to his friend Shane, speaking in the words of Tabitha, saying something like, Shane, you're not half the man Chris is. You could never be the kind of guy she needs. You should actually probably just drop out of the class. Go home. And the next day, then Shane, of course, let Chris know, dude, you know I could just forward that email to her, right? And it was at this time in Chris's life that he learned a major lesson. And that lesson is, if you're going to use a specific type of technology frequently, learn all the basic features. You're just going to be a lot happier. So that's it, guys. I strongly recommend purchasing a GPS watch. I'll talk to you about some of the different options out there in a future video. Until then, get out there.